Hey, it's Sam, and I'm speaking today about mantras and how to approach mantras in your spiritual practice, what they are, why they work, and other things, because they're extremely important in your spiritual growth. Now, many people, they don't even really know what mantras are or what they do or why we would even bother with them. When I do readings, I have people who, they ask me for a mantra, or they just generally want to know why they should say mantra or what it even is. So you have to understand what the word mantra means first. It basically has a connotation that means to protect the mind. So you have words like yantra, mantra, tantra, right? And the tra, I'm not a Sanskrit scholar, but the tra part it generally means sort of protection. And man is for like manas, or mind. Just like tantra, tan is like the body, tra is to protect. So again, it's protect, purify, strengthen, right? It's that kind of thing. So mantra is to strengthen, protect, purify the mind. So why do we need to strengthen, purify, and protect our mind? It's easy to just say, well, because our mind is a mess. But how is it a mess? And what is our mind? What is the part of our mind that's so messy that we would say a mantra to protect it? Well, here's what the mantra does. Just like right now, okay, part of your mind is focused on what I'm saying. You're able to focus your awareness for a brief period of time on like one thing, but then your attention is also dispersed. While you're listening to this, there's other things going on and you're thinking about it, you're not fully present. There's all of these tangential thoughts coming in and out of your mind. And this is a continuous flow, a continuous stream that is constantly flowing through your mind. And this is where your mental energy and basically your life energy, your life force, the prana, gets dispersed, and your self-will, your intelligence, your wisdom gets dispersed in so many directions that you can't advance or move forward. Most of your life energy, at least on the level of your willpower and your self-will, gets dispersed into mainly all of these different tangential thoughts and ideas that are incomplete, and your energy just kind of spins through all of these inner conflicts and things that you're not sure of, and all of this first starts in the mind. All of those incomplete actions, or those things you avoid, and all of that stuff that winds up being incomplete starts in the mind. And the astrology chart is actually a picture of your mind. When I'm reading the chart, I definitely focus on the parts of your mind that feel much more strong and certain, as opposed to what diverts that strength, and also where those inner conflicts are creating energies that are mixed together in ways that keep you stuck. So this is just our mind. This is just the way the mind works. Even the most healthy mind, like let's say if I were looking at an astrology chart and there were like 3 or 4 planets in great signs and all this, you would see that the person would move forward a lot and they would get a lot done. They would have a lot of confidence with those things. But their mind would still be a jumble of stuff. So don't think for 1 minute when you sit back and look at, like rich and famous, successful people or whatever. Okay, they've accomplished a lot, they've achieved a lot, but their mind is still trying to work through higher dimensions and higher levels of awareness based on the dashas and the transits and everything else. So we need a mantra. What the mantra does is it focuses all of that mental energy. That mental energy is usually very diffuse, dispersed, unfocused, or it's focused in these jabby angular moments where it's like, okay, now I'm going crazy over this, now I'm going crazy over that. And, based on how we're getting triggered, we take action. It's not skillful action. We're not acting because it's the best thing we can do and the most intelligent, wise activity or action. It's in response to this swirl of unfocused mental energy. So the mantra gathers the rays of the mind around this powerful thought. So think of the mind, again, I said the rays of the mind. This is the way it's described in text. I don't remember which one says that, uses that kind of exact phrase. There are a lot of other phrases. But if you think of all of these different sort of like beams of sunlight, it focuses them all, kind of like a prism focuses the sun. Like you take a prism or magnifying glass, sorry, that's what I meant to say. Like a magnifying glass takes all the rays of the sun and focuses it in one narrow beam. That's what a mantra does with your mind. So you can pierce through the confusion that exists on the surface of the mind. So the best mantras revolve around a deity, one of the gods. The people say, what mantra should I do? My answer is always the one you love, because that's the one you'll do. I can look at someone's chart and usually see what mantras they'll have a tendency to gravitate toward based on their charts. Simple, the deity mantras like a mantra for Lord Shiva or Ganesha or Lakshmi or Saraswati, Durga. These are mantras from the Puranic writings that are basically secular for householders and I would say normal people, average people, secular people to say, which means you don't need to be initiated into those mantras. Like for instance, you wouldn't sit down and start saying the Sri Rudram, which is from the Krishna Yajurveda, where you need to be trained to say the mantra. And you do. You need to be trained to say those mantras. Something like Om Namah Shivaya or Gam Ganapataye Namaha. These are mantras that you can just say without being initiated or trained. And you'll see that the one you have an affinity for, its form, is the best for you because it has to captivate your heart. You have to bring the mind, the manas, into the heart, where there's devotion and love. So then your mantra is not something you're doing so you get something. Again, think of the difference. People say, can you give me a mantra? And it's usually, can you give me a mantra so I can stop feeling pain, so I can stop suffering, so I can get something? What mantra should I say to overcome the fact that I have difficult relationships so I can get what I want? I'm not criticizing, I'm just saying this is the way the ego sees everything. Everything's revolving around me, so of course a mantra is so that I can be happy. Nothing wrong with that, but that's the very mundane level. That's the lowest level, vibration, lowest in the sense that, first of all, it's not going to sustain, usually, because you're doing it to get something, rather than doing it because you love it. Think of the difference. Think of the difference. When you do something out of love, it's because you love it. Simple. You love saying that mantra. You love that deity. You love that form. When you think of Lord Shiva sitting there with the matted locks, with the Shiva Lingam on Mount Kailas with the Trishul, you love that image. So when you say Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, when you say it in your mind, or you say, and you hold that image in your mind and you say Om Namah Shivaya, and you feel yourself as that image, which is a good trick, by the way. When you say mantra, imagine that's the way you look. It's a good mantra, or it's a good tip. You do it because you love it, not because you think, okay, if I say this, I'm going to get more money, or I'm going to get my, my boyfriend or whatever. Then it's all pervasive, because it's not just a transaction. So you find the mantra that you love, and you say it with all your heart. So that's why when people ask me what mantra should I say the one you love. So what you want to do is you want to see which deity really resonates with you. Usually you can tell by the form. Do you resonate with that Saraswati, playing the musical instrument, with the mala beads, studying the Vedas? Are you interested in that knowledge, in that beauty? Or Lakshmi, dispensing wealth, connection, family? Or Durga or Kali, with that fierce kind of protective mother energy? Or Shiva, Mount Kailas? Or Ganesha, wisdom through expansion? Or maybe Murugan, Kartikeya, the warrior? Or maybe it's Krishna or Lord Rama, some incarnations of God. You want to understand something? The form of the deity is not incidental. The form is a representation of the power encased in the mantra, which means when you say Om Namah Shivaya, you are activating the power and the energy that's represented by that image you see of Shiva. When you say Om Namah Shivaya, you don't evoke an image that brings things like Lakshmi, dispensing coins and abundance. No. When you say Om Namah Shivaya, that vibration in your mind is calling in the energy that gives you the power that looks like what Shiva would be like, the power with the Trishul and the solitude and the yoga master and the one who can exist in truth and solitude and courage like Shiva. That's what Om Namah Shivaya does to your mind. So you take all of those millions of thoughts that just bombard your brain with no focused awareness whatsoever, and you intentionally gather the mind around this one powerful sound. You can either say it audibly or you can repeat it in your mind, which is called Manasa Japa. Japa is a repetition, and Manasa means in the mind. And then instead of the mind being bombarded by millions of out-of-control thoughts, it gathers around this one sacred vibration, this one sacred thought, this one sacred vibration. And it's a vibration, again, when it's something that is congruent with your nature and something that you resonate with. You step into that higher awareness. That higher awareness descends in your mind and brings a lot of clarity and pushes out and helps you reconcile all of those inner conflicts. This is why all great gurus, when they give you a mantra, they ask you which deity you like the most. Well, when I got a mantra from my guru Amma, she said, "What kind of mantra do you want?" They already know, but of course it was Shiva. So one way to understand this power of the mantra as well is with the god Hanuman. He's very interesting, and I intentionally left him out before when I talked about the gods because I knew I was going to come back. Hanuman is the power of prana to gather all of the crazy thoughts in the mind around one powerful mantra. And you look at him as the king of the army of monkeys. Your mind is like the monkey mind, jumping all around, all these thoughts in your mind, out of control, lacking focus. And a mantra is kind of like, instead of having all of this power dispersed everywhere, gathered around the strength of this one focused vibration. Like Hanuman, then he became a superhero. He wasn't just a little monkey. He was the king of the monkeys. And all of that power of what's called Vata, in its deranged form, which is an excess of wind, instead of being Vata, deranged, it's prana, which is mastery over the life force itself, right? So that's the power of mantra. And this is why Hanuman is also the great devotee, because you're a devotee of that energy. And we have this kind of aversion to devotion because we think it's some kind of mental enslavement. It's not mental enslavement at all. It's liberation. It's liberating for your mind to be devoted to something higher, because it's the part of you that's devoted is your ego. The part that you're devoted to is your soul. So like when you say a mantra to Lord Shiva, it's your soul, it's your ego connecting to your soul. Again, the only part of us that feels insulted by worshiping is the ego, and that's the part you need to let go of. So there's no mental enslavement. It's done through your own intention. Intentionally you are saying, I want to connect with this facet of my higher consciousness. So people who say, oh, I'm not religious, all that religion, it's just the ego chattering. Oh, I'm not religious, blah, blah, and then they're suffering with every setback in life. Guarantee you. Those who scorn that kind of spiritual practice are also the most miserable, because you're trying to make the ego win against the flood of cosmic love and wisdom. You're saying, no, I'm not that. I'm this little thing who wants what it wants, and it's real, and I'll get it if I keep fighting everything. So devotion, especially through the use of a mantra, is not some kind of mental enslavement. It's in fact intelligence and wisdom embodied and active, and being actively engaged. The last thing I'll say is that the mantra itself is a sacred vibration, because the Sanskrit language revolves around these sacred vibrations. Om Namah Shivaya is not just a sound, like an affirmation. And we know in the West about affirmations where we say things like, I'm all that I choose to be in this moment. And we say it to ourselves in English. Even that's helpful to have an intentional affirmation. But the Sanskrit sounds are even more powerful than the affirmation, because they're based on unlocking the sounds in our chakras and things like that. So then once you learn one of these kind of mantras, then you can go on to more complex, long worships and prayers, like I say the 1,000 names of the Divine Mother, or even the 1,000 names stotram, the Lalita Sahasranama stotram, where you complex things like Srimata Sri Maharagni Sri Matsi Masaneshwari Chiragnikunda Sambuddha Devakaya Samudyata Udyad Banu Sahasrabhachatur Bahushman Vidaraga Srupa Pasajak Kordan Karanka Sojvala. You say these really long mantras where you take 1,000 mantras and you crunch them down into 180 focused bija mantras. And you say this because there's the devotion to that form of God, and it focuses your mind. After you say these intense mantras, your mind is purified and clean. You don't have to ask how to meditate. People say, how do I meditate? You don't have to ask how to meditate when you say long mantras. Because what happens when you say these long, beautiful mantras, by the time you're done, your mind is done. Like you're already sitting and resting in this huge peace and bliss of the soul. This is what sadhana is. Spiritual practice is doing the practice. Not thinking about meditation, wondering about it, doing it. And a main part of any meditation practice is the mantra. Mantra that protects the mind, uplifts the mind, connects the limited mind with the cosmic mind. And especially the deity mantras are incredibly useful. And they help reconcile a lot of the inner conflicts that we see in the astrology chart.